Hey folks, today we're going to be looking at Queen's Architect, which is a new game from Queen Games. It's designed by Volker Schattella and illustrated by Dennis Lohausen. Queen's Architect is primarily a race game for 2 to 4 players, and what we'll be doing in this game is moving our wagons around this kingdom. It's a sort of a queen's realm, controlled by a queen. We have a band of craftsmen that come with us on our wagons, and we go from town to town on the board, helping to build new buildings and rebuild some structures or do some repairs, basically. And by doing that, we gain the queen's appreciation. We track how much appreciation we have with the queen on this track right here. Each player moves up the track until ultimately they reach the end, and they can contribute on this final space by building part of the queen's palace. And that space kind of looks just like this center space here in the board where we begin. The first player to do that is the winner of the game. Let's just go ahead and jump into it. I've started a 3-player game with the setup here, and I'll explain the rules as we go. In this game, each player has one of these star-shaped boards here. Additionally, they've got another board off to the side, which has a tavern on it and a moneylender, although I've moved them over there just to save space since I'm demoing for 3 players in this game. But on the star-shaped board, we're going to find that it's a rondell. This is basically where players choose the action that they want to do on their turn. The way that they do that is they take this marker and they can move it in a clockwise direction from the position that it started in and choose a place where it ends up. And then they'll take the action on that space. Additionally, this star-shaped board is what houses these craftsman tiles, which will fit in on these notches here as players recruit them over the course of the game. And the numbers that point towards the middle, right here, here, and here, end up being a sum that players will use to determine their building value when they decide to build a building or make a building repair. Over the course of the game, as they use these craftsmen, they need to rotate them afterwards. And eventually, a craftsman gets to the last spot, which is indicated by this arrow, and when they're used one last time, they actually go away. And that creates space for the player to hire another craftsman. Before we start taking turns, players are going to each need to draft 2 craftsmen into their rondell. And the way we do that is that the first player will draft one of these 6 available craftsmen, which would change depending on the number of players in the game. If it was a 2-player game, we'd have 4 available here, and if it was a 4-player game, we'd have 8. But we'd start with the first player, which in this game is going to be the blue player, followed by the green, then the red. And that player will draft one of these craftsmen, and then for the second round of drafting, we'll go in the counterclockwise direction. So red will pick, and then green, and then blue. So let's have blue go ahead and start, and in this case, let's just say they take this tailor. This tailor's got quite a few high numbers, 7s, 6s, 5s, and 4s compared to some of the other craftsmen that are available. So they'll go and they'll take this and they'll put it on their rondell. And since at the beginning of the game, we hire a fully charged craftsman, what we need to do is put it facing the very first space. And we can tell because the arrows tell us which way to rotate, and ultimately the space here with the arrow next to it, the small arrow, the space that's the 2, that's the last space. So they'll start at a 7, and then after they use them, we'll rotate it one time, and it'll become a 6, and then a 5, and then a 4, and ultimately it'll go down to a 2, and then they'll be gone after that. So they'll draft the tailor. Let's come over here. It's the green player's turn now, and let's see. They see that there's another tailor that's also got some pretty high numbers, so maybe they'll draft that person as well. So the green player decides that they'll put the tailor in here. It doesn't matter which spot on their star they put them down on. It's really just telling you that you can hold 6 different craftsmen. And if at any point in the game you have 6 and you want to hire somebody new, you can always fire one of your existing craftsmen. So it's the red player's turn, and they're going to have 2 choices in a row, and they're going to look at the board and see if there are any opportunities to fulfill a town that they want to get to. And let's see, I think that they might want to pick up the blacksmith and the bricklayer. So let's just say they take the blacksmith first, followed by the bricklayer. Bring it over to their little star-shaped rondell here, and let's line this guy up correctly. There we go. And then we'll put the blacksmith in. All right, so they got their 2 people. Coming back, it's the green player's turn again, and they're going to take the woodcutter. They'll put that one on their board like so. And then the starting player, the blue player, will take this bricklayer. As part of this initial drafting phase at the beginning of the game, before anybody gets to take their normal turns, as the players draft their craftsmen, they get to make a decision about whether or not they want them to come in fully charged or not. And normally you'd want your craftsmen to be fully charged, but at the beginning of the game you can exchange charges for money. And so a player can decide whether or not they want somebody to come in a little bit weaker. So let's just say that the blue player decides they want a couple money, so 1 charge, 2 charges. They'll start their bricklayer off at a 3, which will leave them 4 uses left at 3, then 2, then 3, then 1. But this will get them 2 money to start the beginning of the game with, and they'll put that right by their board there. And the green and the red player will also make decisions for that. So let's just say that the green player wants to give up, let's say 2 charges as well, and they'll pick up 2 money. In this case, they probably didn't want to use up the charges on their tailor, which starts at a 6, which is a pretty high value. But they could decide as they draft each individual one whether or not they want to expend charges on there for money to start the game. So over here, let's get the red player, and let's just say that they decided to not take any money at all. Okay, so we're ready to start taking our first real turns of the game. The blue player is the first player to start, and we can see that that's the case because they have this nifty first player marker here, which is a big wooden hammer, which is pretty neat. Okay, so the way that they take the first turn of the game is they look at their rondell here, and they need to choose an action that is 1 to 3 spaces away from their current position, which is where this guy is here. So they can choose this action space, which is the day laborer space, which gets them money, or they could choose this space here, which allows them to recruit new craftsmen from this track here. And we can see that the craftsmen get more expensive. 1 coin, 2 coins, 3 coins, 4, 5, all the way up to 6. And the more expensive they are, the more charges they come with. So we can see here that the craftsman that is the cheapest also comes into your board at the very last space. So you get to only use them for 1 charge. The last option that this player has here is the third one, which is the moneylender. So the moneylender is represented on their board here, which is the Tavern and moneylender board that each player has. And we can see that it's this left side here on the board. So each player basically has a track that this marker moves along when they take this action. And basically they have the option to either move this person up the track 1 space or to convert Queen's bonds into gold. Actually, I just realized I forgot to give everybody their bonds at the beginning of the game. Each player starts the game with 2 of these bonds, and they're all the same. The entire pile is the same. The bonds are essentially worth 2 coins each when they're turned in. So if the blue player was to take the action and turn in bonds, their current position on the track is consulted, and in this case, the first space allows them to turn 1 bond in. So they would be able to take one of these and exchange it for 2 coins. If later they move up the track, you can see that taking that action would allow them to convert 2 bonds, or 3 or 4. So let me go ahead and just fix this and give each player their 2 bonds. So here we go. And lastly, the red player here needs theirs. Okay, they're set up. All right, so now let's actually pick an action. The blue player starts with 2 money because they expended 2 charges on their craftsman. But I think what they're going to do is they're just going to go to the very first space here and do day labor. Now, when we calculate how much they get for doing day labor, we take into account the number of craftsmen that they have. For every 2 craftsmen that they have, they get a coin, and that's rounded up. So if they were to have 3 craftsmen, they're going to get 2 coins. Or if they had 1 craftsman, they're still going to get a coin because we round the value up. The most you can get is 3 coins. Additionally, they have the option, if they look at their craftsmen, that if a craftsman has this coin purse symbol here that matches this symbol, that they can choose to expend a charge like this and get additional money for taking this action. In this case, I think the blue player is going to decline that, and instead they're just going to take a coin for their turn. So that's the entire thing that they would have done on their turn. Now it's the green player's turn. They get to do the same thing, choose between one of these first 3 actions, and let's just say that they come and skip the day labor and go to recruiting a person. Well, they've got 2 coins to work with, so consulting this track here, they can choose one of the first 2 people. And looking at these people, let's just say that they take the glazier. There's a lot of high numbers here. Now, as I said before, we look at this space here, and we can see that we basically have to add this person to our star-shaped board with at this indicated space. We can see the more expensive person comes at this space, and then the next one here, and it switches as it moves around. So if we pay the coin to add the glazier to our board, we have to make sure that he slots in right here, like that. And then we can pay the coin to the bank. And that's the green player's turn. Let's have the red player take a turn here now as well. And taking a look at what they've got, they've started with no money, so let's just say that they move here and do the money lender as well. They've got 1 person here that can do extra work on the day labor, but expending that charge would take them from a 5 to a 1, so they're going to decline that as well. So coming over here, they're going to get 1 coin instead for that action. So we're back to the blue player, it's their turn again, and now they get to choose from one of the next 3 action spaces, which opens up the ability to move their wagon on the board. So we can see their wagon is in the starting area, and they're allowed to move to different towns. I think in this case what they're going to do is they're just going to move 1 step ahead and recruit another person. Getting back to the recruitment board, I've actually forgot to do a little bit of cleanup work here from when the green player recruited somebody in the previous round. And basically what we do in this case is, since they took this first spot, we just reveal the next person and put them down, and they fill that space. Additionally, we take a look at this most expensive person, and because nobody bought that person, they actually get a little bit cheaper. So we can see they used to cost 6, and now they cost 5 to recruit. Okay, so the blue player decided they're going to recruit someone. They've got 3 coins to spend, and I think in this case they're going to buy the, what are they, the stonemason, I think it is, yeah. And so they're going to take this stonemason, and we consult this here. So they're going to put them into their board with this number 2 facing inward. So we just bring that over here, slide these coins over a little bit, and slide them in like so. And that was their action. The green player has already got 3 craftsmen. And so they could take a movement action now. They could also decide to go to this next space here, which allows them to go to their tavern, but that's going to take some money, so they might wait on that. So they want to look at the board right now and see if there are any towns that need a glazier, a tailor, and a woodcutter. So in this case, they can see here's a tailor and a woodcutter needed, and over on this big town, they're just missing a stonemason here. Now, it would be great to recruit another stonemason, but they're actually on the recruitment space, so they're not going to be able to take a recruit action again until they come back around. And actually, speaking of recruit, silly me, I forgot to refill the board again after the last player's recruitment. So in this case, what we do is we can see that a person in the middle of the board was purchased. So these people slide up like that. We refill the bottom space. We get one of these bricklayers coming in. And then lastly, we come up here and we make this person cheaper one more time. They now cost 4, which is actually cheaper than the glazier that cost 5. Okay, so getting back to the green player, I think they're just going to go 1 space ahead and consulting their board here for the moneylender. They get to choose between either turning in bonds or moving up the track. I think that they're going to just move up the track 1 space. So the next time they go here, they can turn in 2 bonds, which happens to be what they have, and potentially get 4 money if they decide to turn those in. The red player is up now, and they are holding 1 coin, which isn't very much, but they've got fully charged craftsmen. And looking at the board, the person that cost 1 coin to recruit is a bricklayer, which is somebody that they already have, which isn't great news for them, unfortunately. So I think what they're going to do is, well, it's never hurts to have more people. So I think in this case, they probably will. They'll just go and recruit this person here. So they'll spend their 1 coin that they've got, and they will pick up this last person on the track. We make sure that they come in at the last space, actually. It's good to consult that ahead of time. So we plug them in here, and then we need to do the refill. We'll actually do it this time. So we put this person in here, and we can see that that's the case. But actually, we're going to bring 2 new people in, because the person at the top that wasn't bought at the value 4 actually gets taken out of the list. So they're removed from the game now, and we have to reset the value up to 6, and everybody slides up. So the new person that we just brought out that would have been value 1 is actually going to be value 2. And we've now got a blacksmith coming in at value 1. So the blue player is up now again, and looking at the various craftsmen that they have, they see a space on the board where they're able to build. So this town right here that requires a bricklayer and a tailor, they just so happen to have those 2 people. So they'd like to be able to move to that town, and from their position that they're at, they're going to need to take 1, 2, 3 movement to get there. They can activate the movement space on their board by going and moving along the rondell, but to take 3 movement, we can consult up here and see at the top of the board that it says 3 times moving your wagon costs you 3 coins. So we'll take their wagon, move it 1, 2, 3 to this town, and put it in the little wagon spot, and then we're going to give up these 3 coins. This is going to set them up to be able to build on a future turn. So the green player is going to decide to move as well, and so they activate that space on their rondell, and they're going to take their wagon and just move 1 space over to this adjacent town right here. They don't have all the things that they need to build there yet. They're going to need a blacksmith. They do have a glazier and a tailor, so they're almost set up for that. Moving 1 space, as we can see here, costs 0, so that's their turn. The red player is in desperate need of some money, but instead of turning in their bonds that they start the game with, they're going to activate the space and kind of play a long game and move up the track one. The blue player is up again, and they now are able to choose from these 3 spaces here, 2 of which I haven't explained. This one allows them to go to their tavern and basically give some of their craftsmen a rest and reclaim charges for them. And this space here is sort of the main space. It's the construction space. It's the space where you can do some work and gain some appreciation here. You can see the icon has this red circle with a question mark, and that relates to this track right here, where players are ultimately trying to move up the track, gain the queen's appreciation, and ultimately be able to win the game. So the blue player is all set up to be able to do some building in the town that they're at. So they're going to skip over the tavern and go straight to building. The town that they're in requires a bricklayer and a tailor, which they've got on their board. So they're all set up to build. Now, when we're going to build, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the value of all of their craftsmen and add it up. The values that we look at are the ones that are pointing to the center. So we can see they've got 3 plus 7 plus 2. That's 12 value of building quality. And that sort of represents the amount of appreciation that you're going to get from the queen when we consult this track. So they've got a 12 total here. And in the town that we're in, we can see that there are 3 building sites. And there's a site that subtracts nothing from their total, one that subtracts 2 from their total, and one that subtracts 4. Well, they're the first player here, so I think what they're going to do is take the spot that subtracts nothing. So each player's got a set of cubes. They take one of them, and they place them on this spot, covering it up. So the other players now, if they come here and build, would have to choose between these penalties. But we can see that this is a small town. It only has a requirement of 2 things. So it also has a maximum, and I'll try to rotate here, a maximum amount of appreciation that you can earn, which it says is 10. So even though their total here is 12, they can only get 10 appreciation total. So they take that 10 appreciation that they got, and they can use that to move up this track here. So we can see to move from the space they're currently in to the next spaces here, they need to have at least 7 appreciation. Well, they do have that. They've got 10 to work with, so they can move up this track. Well, they've got 3 left. So what happens is a player can convert any appreciation remaining at a 1-to-1 into bonds from the queen. So they spent 7 to move up that first space on the track, and they will get 3 bonds, which will go into their supply, which they can turn into money on future turns. It's worth noting that they could have elected to not use that 7 to move this space, and instead take 10 bonds. It's completely up to the player how they want to spend their queen's appreciation when they do a build. Alternatively, besides actually building a place here, they could have done a repair, but we'll get into that on a future turn. So to finish up the blue player's turn, they actually have to do one last thing after doing their build, which is expend each of their craftsmen that were involved. So the way that we do that is we spend their charge, we rotate it 1 space clockwise, so this person went from a 3 to a 2, the tailor went from a 7 to a 6, and the stonemason went from a 2 to a 1. So now all of these people are a little bit closer to being completely exhausted. So that's the end of the blue player's turn. Let's go to the green player. The green player only has 1 money to spend, but I think they're actually going to go to the tavern, so we'll explain that right here. So what the tavern allows us to do is basically get more charges back for our players. The green player sees that their glazer is on the last space. They recruited them very cheaply, and so they'd like to be able to use them 2 times rather than 1 time. And so they're going to send them to their tavern. So we come over to their little board here, and we can see that the tavern is sort of the right 2/3 of this board. And it's actually got sort of an order of operations that we need to follow. And it tells us here with the 1, 2, and 3. Basically, the different types of craftsmen that you have can be sent to various stages of the tavern to get rest, but then they can't immediately go to the tavern over and over again. So that's what these order of operations arrows are telling us. Basically, at first, it's telling us that anybody who's in the dormitory, meaning anybody who previously was in the tavern getting some beverages, I guess, moves out of the dormitory and they move to the entrance space. We've got a stack of tiles here representing each of the different craftsman types. There's 6 of them sitting on the entrance. All of them are capable of going into the tavern, but they need to be on the entrance to do that. After we move anybody who's in the dormitory into the entrance space, we go to the second phase of the order of operations, which is to move anybody who is in the tavern into the dormitory. And then lastly, we can choose who is at the entrance that we would like to move into the tavern and get some relaxation. So in this case, we can choose any of them. The stack is just there to consolidate space. We can pick anybody who's in the entrance. We want the glazer to get a charge back, so we move them inside. And we can consult this chart here, which tells us that the number of people that you move in will cost a certain amount. So in this case, sending 1 person in costs 1 coin. Well, the green player happens to have a coin, so they're going to spend that. And what we get to do here is reclaim a charge. So the glazer basically rotates instead of clockwise, counterclockwise. So while he did go from a 3 to a 1, it can now be used 2 times instead of 1 time. And that's the extent of the Tavern action. So the red player's up, and they're just basically going to move their wagon. So they take the wagon moving space. They're going to come up here, and they're going to move to this town here. They don't have everything they need to build here yet, but they are able to build there once they can get a woodcutter. They're going to need to get some money to recruit that, because right now the only woodcutter is on the 5 space, which happens to be pretty costly, and they don't have very much money. But that's the extent of their action. It costs them nothing to move 1 space, as we can see according to that track there. And so they're done. Back to the blue player, they're going to go 1 space and take the day labor. They've now got 3 craftsmen, so they're going to be able to take 2 coins, because we round up for every 2 that they've got. So they'll take 2 coins into their supply. And while they do have someone here that can be expended to get an additional coin, I think they're going to decline that once again. The green player doesn't have what they need currently with the combination of craftsmen to be able to build in the town that they're at. The town that they're at needs a blacksmith, as indicated here. Well, there is one on the track, but they just spent all of their money at the tavern. So instead of building, they're going to skip over here to day labor, the same thing as the blue player. And they've got 3 people, so they're going to be able to take 2 coins. The red player is going to skip over the tavern and the building action and go also to day labor, and they will also get 2 coins. Well, the blue player sees the next space on their track as recruit people, but the people that they've got in the first 2 spaces aren't of a lot of interest to them right now, because they've only got 2 coins, so they can only choose from those spaces. They did pick up some extra bonds when they built in the previous turn. So I think they're going to come here to the moneylender space, and they'd like to be able to exchange bonds at a greater rate, so they're just going to move up on the track here, so in the future, they'll be able to exchange 2. The green player is very happy that the blue player decided not to hire this blacksmith here, because the green player needs one on the space that they're at. So they're going to go on their rondell to the very next space and recruit somebody. They'll spend the 1 coin that it's going to cost, they'll put that back in the supply, to recruit this blacksmith here. We see that the blacksmith comes in pointing at 3, so we'll take that and point that right there. And now we need to do a little bit of cleanup, which is we bring a new person in. It's a glazer, and we need to make this one a little bit cheaper. So the guy up top is now only costing 5. So the red player would love to be able to recruit this woodcutter up here, but they just don't have enough money right now. Thankfully, on a previous turn, they moved up the track on the moneylender. So I think what they're going to do here is skip recruitment, go to the moneylender space. In this case, they're going to choose to exchange bonds. They can exchange 2 of them in 1 action, and they happen to have 2. So they'll exchange these 2. Each bond is worth 2 coins, so they're going to grab a total of 4 coins. The blue player is going to choose to move their wagon, and they'll move from the town that they're currently in all the way up here to this big town, which is going to require a few more people than they currently have. The movement is free. The green player has everything that they need in terms of the types of craftsmen to be able to build in the location that they're at, but they can't get to the build action yet. It's 4 spaces away on their rondell instead of 3, which is the maximum that they can choose from. So they're going to go 1 space ahead and go to the moneylender. They've already previously moved up the track, so they can take their 2 bonds and exchange them for 4 gold. Well, the red player can choose between moving, going to the tavern, or building, but right now they're not really interested in any of those actions, really. But they do need to move on their rondell, so they're going to move to the build space. But in this case, they don't want to build, but they are allowed to forfeit the action, so that'll be their turn. It sets them up on a future turn to be able to choose from any of these spaces here. The blue player is going to skip the tavern and the construction and go straight to the day labor space, and so they will pick up 2 coins. So the green player is just about all set up to be able to build in this space finally, now that they've got their blacksmith. But looking at the total that they've got here, it's 6 plus 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9, plus 3 is 12. Now, looking at the board here, 7 plus 6 is 13. If they could get 13 appreciation, they can move 2 spaces with 1 build instead of just 1. So I think instead of going straight to building, they're going to go to the tavern. And the person they're going to send into the tavern is going to be this woodcutter, because if we were to rotate them and get a charge back, they'd go from a 2 to a 3, making their total go from 12 to 13, allowing them to move 2 spaces on the track. So we come over here and we follow the order of operations first, so nobody moves from the dormitory. Second, we move the glazer out of the pub into the dormitory, and then we find the woodcutter here and we move him in. Doing 1 person is going to cost 1 coin, so they give that up. Goes back to the bank, and then we do actually do this rotation here. So now we look at the total, and they've got 13. So they're all set up on their next turn to be able to build and move 2 spaces on the track instead of just 1. So the red player's definitely been lagging behind the others because they haven't been able to get the combination of craftsmen that they need. But that woodcutter that they need is out there on the board right now. and they're in position on their rondell to take the recruitment space. So they're going to skip the day labor, just in case anybody else might pip in there first, and they will go ahead and buy the woodcutter. So we come up here, we see the woodcutter cost 5. We've got the 5 to pay for it. So we go ahead and return that to the bank really fast. And then we take a look at this and we see that we need to point it at this 2 space here. So we bring that there, we point the 2 in, so it's nearly full charged woodcutter. So they've now got a few different craftsmen here to add to their total. And then we just need to do a little bit of cleanup here. So we slide all of these people up. And we bring in the new person. It's another woodcutter, but obviously the one they got has a lot more charges. And then because nobody bought the person at the top, they get cheaper. They now cost 4. Well, the blue player is pretty happy to see this woodcutter come in at the bottom of the list. They're all set up to choose a recruit action next. And the town that they're in requires a woodcutter. So they will come over here, choose to do the recruit action, and then come over here and take this woodcutter. They come in at a pretty meager 1 with 1 charge, which isn't great, but they can send them to the tavern before they build and get that guy back up a charge, although they'd go to 0 first, so maybe 2 charges would be beneficial. Or they could just decide to use them up. It only cost 1 coin, so it's not a particularly big deal. Well, they did the recruit action, so now we go ahead and bring a new person out. But they're actually going to slide because we're on the cheapest spot here. So we bring that back up. We get rid of this person from the game and everybody else slides up. Okay, so after all of that tavern setup, the green player is finally going to do their move action, or sorry, their construction action. So they've got everybody that they need for this space, plus somebody, a woodcutter. So they've got their blacksmith, their glazer, and their tailor to build in this space. So we're going to grab one of their cubes, place it down on the -0 space of this town, and we're going to add up their values. So we already know they're 13 because we did that previously. So the 13 is going to allow the green player to skip over the 7 and also skip over the 6, moving 2 spaces up the track. And then lastly, we just need to rotate everybody. So this person gets a little bit less powerful, this one gets a little bit more powerful, and that one. So that's their turn. The red player doesn't have any bonds to turn in, and they could go straight to the tavern, but I actually think they're going to be a little bit more forward-looking. So instead of going straight to the tavern, they're going to go to the moneylender track. And while they don't have any bonds to turn in, they can move up the track. So in the future, any extra bonds can be turned in at 3 in one go. The blue player is also going to go to the moneylender. They're number 2 on the track, and they've got all of these right here. So they're going to turn 2 in to get 4 coins, actually. The green player would like to recruit another person, but they don't really see any threat from the other players of immediately being able to recruit. We can see on their boards, they're quite a few steps away from the recruitment space. So instead of going directly to recruit, the green player is just going to go to day labor and pick up some extra money. So for 4 people, they'll get 2 coins. The red player is all set up to build in the space that they're at. They've got a total of 14 here, which is going to allow them to move 2 spaces on the track. But before they do that, they're going to go to the tavern because this person here is in jeopardy of going away after they're used in their next build. So they'll jump 2 spaces instead of 3 and send this person, the bricklayer, to the tavern. So it's worth noting that when you send somebody to the tavern, you're sending entire types of craftsmen, meaning that you're sending all bricklayers into the tavern. So in this case, we'd actually get to be able to recharge both of these people, except that this guy here is already at full charge, so there's no benefit to that. In this case, we pay based on the number of types of craftsmen, so we wouldn't pay more because we had 2 bricklayers. We'd still pay the base amount of 1 coin. Well, they happen to have 1 coin, so they can rotate this guy counterclockwise, get a second charge on them, and now when they're set up for building, they'll retain that bricklayer. So the blue player would like to be able to do a build action, but in the town that they're at, we can see that they're missing a glazer. The glazer is required for this big town. So instead of doing a regular build, because they'd need to recruit somebody first, they will go to the build action, but they're going to do the other choice that you have here, which is to repair. Now, when you do a repair, what we do is we consult this value that we can see here, the red circle on each of these craftsman icons, and we count up between 3 different types of craftsmen, up to 3. We can choose to do less, and we get that amount of Queen's Appreciation. Afterwards, we have to exhaust them. So in this case, we can count 3 plus 2 plus 1, or 1. We can't use 4, but 3 plus 2, and we'll do this person since our tailor here has very high numbers. And so that adds up 3, 2, 1, that's 6. Well, the very next spot on the track requires 6. So by doing a repair action, the blue player is able to move up a spot on the track. So what we do is, just like building, we expend 1 space here. They're actually going to lose their woodcutter because it was the last charge. So the woodcutter will just get discarded from the game board. And we rotate this guy as well. They're on the last charge. So they're going to do a little bit more recruiting, but this allows them to move up one space here and stay caught up with the green player. Since this is a race game, you do need to make sure you don't fall behind the pack. So on their previous turn, the green player ignored doing recruiting so they could get a little bit of extra money. So now they're going to go and do a recruit. They really want to get a stonemason because they're only one space away here from being able to contribute in this small town. So they've got two choices, the stonemason that costs 5 and the stonemason that costs 4. I think they'll take the stonemason that costs 5 and they'll point it at this 2 space in their board. So bring it over here. They bring it in there like that. They'll pay the 5 coins. We'll slide everybody up like so. And we will additionally make this blacksmith a little bit cheaper for everybody else. So last turn we sent the red player's bricklayer to the tavern. This time we're going to do a construction. So in the town that they're in, they've got everything that they need. They need a blacksmith, a woodcutter, and a bricklayer. And so they're all set up. So we add up the values. 5 plus 5 is 10. 2 plus 2 is 4. So 14 total. And we consult the track over here. The red player is still on the first space, but 14 is going to allow them to move 1, 2, but not 3. They'd still need 4 more. But they've got 1 left over. So they're going to be able to take one of these bonds and claim that for future use. Lastly, they need to take one of these and place it on these spaces. Obviously, they were the first one, so they didn't subtract anything from the 14 value. And the space that they were in had a max value of 15, so they were safe there. Lastly, we just need to rotate everybody. So rotate one, another one, and another one. So the red player is in an interesting predicament here, which is that their 2 people that contributed 5 each have now gone down to 1 and 0. So they're not going to be very useful on the next time that they do something. So it might be useful for the red player to be able to do a repair on a future turn, because the repair doesn't consult these numbers here, it consults the small red number, which we can see these guys are worth 2 and 2. So instead of 1 and 0, they're worth 2 and 2. And we expend a charge on that future turn and they'll go from a 0 to a 5, in this case from a 1 to a 3. So they'll be set up for a future turn to be able to do that. So just like the green player did before, the blue player is going to go to the day labor space and take some money. They'll take 2 of these coins here. And they're not worried, even though they need to do some recruiting, because the green player just recruited, and the red player has no money, so they're no threat to them to be able to recruit. So with their turn, they might as well pick up some money, which is going to allow them to spend big. In the space that they're at, they're going to need to bring in somebody else. Actually, they're going to need to bring in 2 people, a glazer and a woodcutter. So they might even consider moving somewhere else to be able to do something a bit sooner. Okay, so the green player's up, but I actually realized I've made a mistake. So when they did their build a couple turns ago, I rotated this person clockwise 1 space, but they were actually already on the last space of their usefulness. So instead of rotating 1 space, they actually need to go away. So thankfully, this didn't have any impact on any of their ability to do anything here, so we're safe. But, okay, back to actually taking their turn. The green player is just going to move 1 space, go to the moneylender. They don't actually have any bonds to turn in, but they will move up to the ×3 space. This will set them up to get a lot more money on a future turn. The red player has no money, so they're going to go and do some day labor and pick up 2 coins because they have 4 craftsmen. The blue player is going to take the recruit action. They've got plenty of money here. They really need a glazer. So they come over here, they see the glazer is available for 4. They're going to point at a 0 space, which isn't great, but they could always send them to the tavern and turn them into a 5. So they'll pay 4. They'll bring in the glazer here, and we'll reset the board. So we'll slide these guys up. We'll bring in a new person. It's a blacksmith. This blacksmith at the top gets a little bit cheaper, so they now cost 4. The green player is going to take the wagon action, and they're going to move to this small town right here. The red player is going to recruit somebody. They've got 2 coins from their previous turn, so they're going to come in here and recruit this stonemason at the value 1. Okay, and they'll pay 2 coins for that. We'll slide this up. We see that the blacksmith that cost 4 wasn't taken, so we get rid of them. Slide all of these guys up here and reveal 2 new people, another blacksmith, and it's a bricklayer. The blue player has a bunch of bonds, so they're going to go to the moneylender space. They're able to turn in 2 of them, so they'll turn these 2 in for a total of 4 coins, and they'll continue to be very rich. The green player is going to go to the tavern space. So we're going to follow these actions here. The first thing we're going to do is bring this person out of the dormitory, bring the woodcutter into the dormitory, and then in this case they've only got 1 coin. They're going to send the glazer back in. So they'll give up this coin, and then they get to rotate this person. So they go from a 3 to a 1, but 2 charges instead of 1. The red player would like to set themselves up for a build in a future turn, so they're going to go to the moneylender. They've got 1 bond, and they'll exchange it for 2 coins. The blue player is going to go to the tavern, And they've got nobody in the dormitory or anything. And I think in this case they're going to send the stonemason and the glazer inside. So this is going to be 2 different people, so it's going to cost them 3 coins to go in there. So we pay that. And the stonemason's extra charge is going to mean that they don't go away the next time. And the glazer is going to go from a 0 to a 5. So that's a pretty beneficial move for them. So the green player is going to do a construction action. They're going to build a building in the city that they're in. All they need is a woodcutter and a stonemason. They've got those, so they're set. They're able to build a building. And so we're going to look at the total they've got here. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. They've got plenty to be able to move over this space here. So they're going to be able to place this down in this small town here, minus 0. So 9 minus 0, they're still under the maximum of 10, so they're good. And then we're going to rotate everybody 1 space, clockwise, not counterclockwise. There we go. And this guy goes to the last space here. All right. And they had 9, so they get to move over this space, and they've got 4 remaining, so they'll turn those into 4 bonds. So the red player is going to do a repair a building action, so they're going to skip all the way to the build action. You're allowed to repair wherever you want, so even though they've built a building here, and you're not allowed to build buildings in the same towns, you are allowed to repair wherever you would like. So they need to take 3 different people to consider for the build. So I think they're going to do this person here who's worth 2, so we'll exhaust them. They go from 0 to a 5. And then probably, let's say this person here goes from a 1 to a 3, and the stonemason will go from a 1 to a 1. So 2 plus 1 gives them 5 total appreciation to use for this repair. Well, over the track here, they need 5 to skip this space, so the repair let them stay on pace with the green player. Well, the blue player looks at the board and they see that they need a woodcutter, and a woodcutter in all these spaces near them. So I think they're going to go and do a recruit. So they'll skip over the moneylender and the builder space, and they'll come to the recruit board, and they'll see there is a woodcutter here that costs 4. They'll come in at a 1, which isn't great, but they'll have a few charges on them, so that's helpful. And they can always send them to the tavern to get him to go back to a 4. So they're going to pay the 4 coins that it costs, and we'll slide all of this up here. This person here gets a little bit cheaper, and we'll bring in a new person, which is another blacksmith. So lots of blacksmiths on offer on the board right now. The green player is going to do some day labor and pick up 2 coins. The red player is also going to do day labor, and since they have 5 people, we round that up, and they're going to get 3 coins. The blue player has everything that they need to be able to build in the town that they're currently in. That town has a maximum of 20. And if we look at the board here, they're going to need 5 plus 8 plus 7, which is 20, to move all the way up here. So if they can muster up a value of 20 on their next build in this town, they can move 3 spaces on the board, which is pretty great. Right now, if we look at their people, they don't have a value of 20. They've got 6 plus 3 is 9, plus another 6 is 15, 16. They're going to need 4 more. So if they send some people to the tavern, they might be able to make that happen. So I think that's going to be their action here. They're going to go to the tavern, and they're going to send the woodcutter and the tailor to the tavern. And so what we'll see here is that if we rotate this guy, we get from a 1 to a 4, so that adds 3, and a 6 to a 7. So that's going to give us the 20 that we need. So sending 2 people into the tavern here is going to cost us 3 coins, which we happen to have. But first, let's do the order of operations. So nobody comes out of the dormitory. These 2 move into the dormitory. And then we're going to find the tailor and the woodcutter and move them in. And we're all set up on a future turn to move a lot of spaces. The green player really needs a bricklayer to be able to build in this big town adjacent to them. So they really would like to get this guy here. They're set up to recruit now, so they'll go ahead and take the recruit action. They happen to have 2 coins from their previous action, so they'll spend those, and they'll pick up this guy here. He comes in at a 1, so we'll point that in there, and then we slide everybody else up. A whole train of blacksmiths there, and this gentleman comes in here, and we slide this down. That guy gets a little bit cheaper. The red player would like to get a tailor, so they're going to come down here and take the recruit action. And they're going to pick up this tailor here who comes in at a 3. So we will do that. That spot costs 5, which they happen to have. So we'll pay that over here. Okay, and then all we need to do is slide everybody up. We can see here this guy was already super cheap, so they go away. So we're going to have a whole bunch of blacksmith at the top, a woodcutter, and 2 more individuals, a bricklayer, and another tailor. Actually, one with some pretty high values, so that could be pretty lucrative for somebody to pick up. Back to the blue player, and they're going to do their big build here, so they're going to come and activate the build action. We look at up here, we need a woodcutter, a tailor, a glazer, and a stonemason. They happen to have all of those, so they're in good shape. They're going to take one of their cubes here, place it down on a space. The minus is 0, so we don't subtract anything from their value, which is 4 plus 5 is 9, plus 1 is 10, plus 3 and 7 is another 10, so a maximum of 20. So that 20 is going to allow them to be able to move 5, 13, 20 total. They won't have anything left over, but they've just jumped way ahead on the board. So they're in good position to be able to build towards the Queen's Palace here pretty soon. So when we do that, we need to rotate everything. So this guy comes down to the last spot, from 7 to 6 here, also down to the last spot, back from 5 to 0, and here 4 to 1. So it's a pretty big move, but now their total goes from being at 20 to 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 6. So they went from 20 to 9. So they'll have to rectify that, but it was a pretty good move. The green player has all of these bonds right here. So they're one space away from the moneylender. So what they'll do here is they'll go to the moneylender action. They're on the 3 space on the track. So they can take 3 of these, turn them in, and get 6 coins. The red player is going to skip the moneylender and go to the move their wagon space, or action space, and they will move 1 space down here to a town where they have everything they need to build there. Moving 1 space is free, so they're all set. Let's go back to the blue player here. It's worth noting, and I'll just jump back to this, that in these big towns that require 4 people, and on their previous turn where they built this building, that you get to have a bonus when you build in the big towns. On this tile, we can see here that it's basically a bonus recruit action. I kind of forgot to execute that, but really the blue player didn't have any money, so they couldn't recruit anybody anyway. So it wasn't really a loss for them, but it's worth noting that you should keep an eye on those spaces. So for their actual turn, the blue player is going to take 3 money as a day labor because 5 people rounded up will give them the 3 money that they need. The green player is going to move their wagon. They'll go from this town up to here to a town where they have everything that they need. A glazer, a bricklayer, a stonemason, and a woodcutter. They happen to have all of that, and that'll set them up to be able to do a big build on a future turn. So the red player is going to activate the build action on their rondell here, and they're going to come over and look at the town. They've got everything that they need on their board. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add everything up. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 1 is 8, plus 3 is 11, plus 5 more. They're generating 16. And that, we know we're not subtracting anything because they're the first one to build in this town. So they've generated 16 in a town that has a maximum of 20. And so let's just go ahead and pay everybody here. So we'll rotate this guy, this one, that one. This person goes away because of the arrow. This person also goes away, and we rotate this person. So they're going to lose 2 people, but the 16 that they've generated will allow them to move 8 plus 7, 2 spaces to catch up with blue on the track, and they'll have 1 remaining to pick up a bond. And then the bonus for building in this big city is 4 coins, so they'll get those immediately as well. So the blue player is going to do a recruit action. They've got 3 coins to spend, and looking at the first 3 spots here, we've got a tailor, a bricklayer, and a woodcutter. Now this tailor at the bottom's got some pretty high numbers, so even though they would come in at 1 charge, if you send them to the tavern, they'd be able to be pumped up a little bit. But we can see with this portrait here, with the lady with the scissors, is the same person that they've got on their board. And there's a rule that players can't have the same exact character as one of the 6 people that they've recruited. So in this case, they're not actually even allowed to choose this person. So instead, I think what we're going to see is they're going to look at these people and find that this guy is worth 2 in repairs and this guy's worth 3. So in this case, I think that the player is going to pick up the woodcutter, which will give them a little bit higher of a value here, and they'll pay the 3 coins for that recruitment. We'll slide these guys up, and we'll put this last tile here. And it's only a last tile because I divided the stack. I've got an entirely the remaining tiles. There's a whole bunch of them, 54 I believe. So we're not running short on future people to recruit in this game. So the green player is going to send some people to the tavern. In this case, they're going to send the tailor and it looks like the bricklayer, or sorry, stonemason. So first we move this guy out of the dormitory. We move this person in, and then we said the stonemason and the tailor. That's going to cost 3 coins, so we'll pay those. And then we'll rotate this person back here, 2 to 4, and 1 to 2. That'll increase their total. So the red player is going to pick up some extra money here, so they'll get 2 coins for doing day labor. The blue player is going to turn in their 1 bond and get 2 coins. The green player is going to do a build action in the town that they're in. They've got everything that they need to be able to build in that town. And so we add up everything they've got. So 3 plus 4 is 7, 8, 10, 12. If we look at this town here, it's actually going to give us, we'll just rotate this around here, 1 extra appreciation from the queen for building there. So that 12 will actually become a 13. And so we'll take the cube, we'll put it down here on the -0 spot, and they're going to get 13 appreciation. Unfortunately for green, to move 2 spaces, they're going to need 15. So they're only going to be able to move here, but they're going to pick up 5 remaining bonds from the supply. And we'll rotate all of their workers as well. So the red player has got some money, so they're going to go to take this recruit action. They're going to spend 5 of these coins to take the person all the way at the top. It comes in fully charged, so a blacksmith will slot in here in the fully charged spot. And they were discounted. Instead of 6, they cost 5. And then what we'll do is we'll reset this back to 6, slide all of these fellows up here, and bring out a new person, which is another tailor. So the blue player is going to move their wagon. They're going to skip this town up here, and they're just going to move here. So instead of 1 space, they're going to move 2. It's going to cost them a coin. The green player is going to do a recruit action. They're going to spend their 3 coins here, spend that, and they're going to pick up this tailor, which comes in at a 4. So we'll rotate that, and that's just going to add 4 to their value. It's worth noting they would have liked to have just paid 1 coin to get a value 5, but they've already got the same character here, so it's not an option for them in this case. And so we slide those up. We bring in a new person that's a bricklayer, make this person cheaper. The red player is going to move their wagon, and they're going to move 1 space to this little town right here. It's free since it's 1 space. So the blue player is going to take a build action, but really what they're actually going to do is repair. So they're going to look at the smaller values here, 1, 2, 1 for these people. That adds up to 4, so they're going to rotate them. So this is a 0 to a 1, a 1 to a 3, or sorry, a 0 to a 4, a 1 to a 3, and a 6 to a 5. So that 4 appreciation that they got there is going to allow the blue player to move 1 space up the track. Well, the green player is a little worried that they're falling a little bit behind here, but they're going to go ahead and get some money. They've got a bunch of extra bonds here, and the position on their track allows them to exchange 3 of them. So they'll turn 3 in for 6 coins. So the red player is also going to do a repair action. And so in this case, let's say they go ahead and expend this person here, so 1 to a 3, or 3, and this person here, 1 to a 1, 2, so they've got 5 appreciation. The red player only needs 4 to move up this spot on the track, but they're going to have 1 extra here for the 5 that they had gotten, so they'll pick up a bond. The blue player is going to do some day labor. They've got 6 craftsmen, so they'll pick up 3 coins. The green player is going to move their wagon, so they're going to come over here into the same place that the blue player is. It's worth noting that as many players can, they don't block each other, so all the players could be in 1 town if they needed to be. The red player is going to skip all the way to the moneylender, turn in these 2, even though they could turn in 3 if they had them, and get 4 coins. So the blue player is going to go to the moneylender, and they're going to choose to move up the track from the 2 to the 3 space. The green player is going to do a build before the blue player can, so they're going to take one of their cubes, put it down all the way over here in the -0 space. Then they're going to add up their values. 1, 2, 4, 8, plus 2 is 10, so they hit the maximum there. And so they'll just pay everybody here, 1 to 2. This person goes to the last spot. This person gets a little weaker, and this person goes away completely, so we'll put them in the discard pile. Okay, so they picked up 10 appreciation. Unfortunately for green, again, they can't jump both spaces. They're going to need 11. So they're still a little bit behind, but they're going to pick up 3 of these bonds as the remainder. So the red player is going to jump all the way to the build action, and so they'll take one of their cubes. And in the town that they're in, the blue player is already built there, so they're going to cover the -2 space. So they're going to have to subtract 2 from their total and make sure that it still doesn't exceed a value of 10. So looking at their current values, they've got 5 plus 3 is 8, 9, 12, 13. So they have to subtract 2 from that. That's 11. And the maximum is 10. So they're still going to score 10 total appreciation. So let's just rotate these people really fast. This one goes to the last. This one goes down a little bit. This one goes from 5 to 0, but then back to 5 again later. Okay, so they've generated 10 appreciation. And so they're going to be able to hop over this 9 space. And they're currently in the lead. And they've got 1 left. So they'll pick up one of these bonds. So the blue player's up, and they're going to move their wagon. Instead of hanging out in this town that they're in right here, they're going to move 1 space over to this bigger town instead. And that 1 space will cost them nothing. The green player is going to go ahead and recruit somebody here. And it looks like they're going to go ahead and go for the most valuable blacksmith. It costs 5 right now, so they'll come in at the fully charged position right here, and they'll turn in these 6, get 1 back. Okay, and so of course, as normal, we will go ahead and return that, bring these up here, and bring out a new person, and it's another bricklayer. The red player is going to go ahead and do some day labor, so they'll pick up 3 coins. So the blue player is going to go ahead and do a build action. The city that they're in already has been built in by the green player, so they'll take one of their cubes here, and they'll put it in the -2 space. So now they're going to need to add up all the values of what they've got. You can see here they've got 5, 6, 10, 13, 14, 15. -2 is 13, but we can take a look at the fact that here we get that +1 bonus. So the 13 becomes a 14, and the 14 appreciation that they've got will allow them to move 9 + 5 here, so 2 spaces up on the track, which puts them very close to the last space here where they can build at the palace. So we'll rotate everybody, and first this guy is going to go away, this person will go down, this person goes away, that one goes down, this goes from 3 to 0, and this one goes from 1 to 3. So pretty costly, but it sets them up well ahead of the green player for certain, and the red player, they're 1 space ahead of them. The green player is going to go to the moneylender. They can exchange 3 of the plentiful amount of bonds that they've got, so they'll exchange 3 of those and get 6 coins, and that'll be useful for them to be able to recruit people in the future. The red player is going to do a recruit action, and so they'll come over here and they're going to pick up this stonemason, which comes in pointing this way. So now they've got another type of craftsman that they didn't have. That'll cost them 4 for this. We slide each of these people up. We bring out a new person, a glazer hits, and we make the top blacksmith a little bit cheaper. The blue player is going to pick up 2 money from the day labor action, so they'll grab these right here. The green player is going to skip here to the build thing, but they're going to do a building repair. So they're going to expend this person here, who adds 2 to their value, and this person here, which also adds 2. So they'll get a total of 4 appreciation, and this will allow them to hop over this spot right here. So the red player decides to move their wagon, and they're taking a look here at the track and seeing that they need 5 and then 6 before they can build at the palace. Well, that means they need to get back to the palace, so they're just going to move right back to where they've been before. A 5 and then a 6, they might be able to achieve that via repairing buildings, so their movement will be free, and they will be 1 space closer to being home. The blue player is going to recruit the blacksmith up here. So they cost 5 right now. They'll come in and point at the 3 right here. And then we're going to go ahead and make this more expensive, slide all these guys up really fast, and bring out the new person, which happens to be yet another bricklayer. So 4 bricklayers, so there's a lot on offer. The green player is going to do a recruit action, and they're going to spend 4 to pick up this bricklayer here. It comes in at a value 3, so they'll spend these coins right here. Turn those in, and we'll do the normal thing, which is make that person cheaper, slide these up. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more variety here. Yes, a glazer appears. The red player is going to go to the build action. They're going to do a repair. They're going to count the 2, and the 1, so they'll rotate all of these, and these people get a little bit more valuable or stay the same. So they've got 5 appreciation, and they can see here that's exactly how much they need to catch up with the blue player on the track. The blue player is going to do a move. They're going to spend their 1 coin to be able to move 2 spaces, and so they will move 1, 2, and now they're very close to this space here. They can also build here if they'd like. So the green player would like to go to the moneylender, but they're trailing behind everybody, so they're going to need to get on the move. So they're going to move their wagon over to this town here. It doesn't cost them anything. The red player is going to do some day labor, so they'll pick up 3 coins. The blue player is going to do a repair action in the city that they're in, and they're going to spend the 3, or get the 3 appreciation, 1 and 2, to get a total of 6. So we'll go ahead and spend this, and this, and this. And that 6 appreciation will allow them to move to this final space on the track here, which means that they are now able to go build at the Queen's Palace. Before they can build there, they're going to need to return from this space to the palace space, and they'll need to be able to contribute a minimum of 15 total to be able to build there. So the green player is also going to do a build action. In the town that they're in, they're going to be able to place one of their cubes on the -0 space. So we'll add up their values here really fast. 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 6, plus another 6 is 12, plus 5 is 17. Now the town that they're in has a maximum of 15, so they're going to score 15 points of appreciation. We look at the track here, and they can move up 2 spaces here, spending 14 of the 15. They'll get 1 bond back, but they've caught up with the red player. The red player is going to move their wagon, and they'll do it for free. They're going to move to this small town right here. The blue player is going to do some day labor, so they'll take 3 coins. The green player is going to go to the moneylender. They can turn in 3, so they will do that, and they will pick up 6 coins. The red player is going to do a repair, so they're going to get 2 appreciation. This person's going to go away for 2 more, and another 2 to get 6 appreciation total. This allows them to catch up with the blue player on the last space of the track. The blue player is going to do a recruit action, spending these 3 coins to bring in this glazer right here. We need to put them in at the 3 spot. So there they are. Okay, and the top person gets a little bit cheaper, and we slide these people up, bring in a new person, which is yet another bricklayer. The green player is going to move their carriage, and they're going to move it 2 spaces, 1, 2, and that'll cost them 1 coin. The red player is going to do a recruit action, and they're going to spend 5 coins. So they'll turn these in and get 1 back, and they'll spend, they're going to spend 4 coins, and they're going to get this bricklayer, who's discounted, comes in at full charge, which is a value of 5, and they'll spend those coins. Exchange those really fast, and then we'll slide everybody up. We'll make this person more expensive. The usual refill of the track, and see who comes out. It's a woodcutter. The blue player is going to move their wagon, and so they'll move it to the same space that green is on, which is the Queen's Palace space in the center of the board. The green player is going to do some repairs, so they'll get 2 plus 3 plus 2 is a total of 7, and we'll rotate all these people right here, like so. They've all gotten slightly better. So the 7 will allow them to catch up to everybody else on the end of the track, as well as also get a deed. The red player is going to move their wagon to the same spot everybody else is in, which is the Queen's Palace.
It's the blue player's turn, and they are going to do a build. So since they are at the end of the track, they are allowed to build at the palace, which requires a minimum of 15, which they will now tabulate. So they've got 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 2 is 9, plus another 2 is 11, plus another 1 is 12, plus 3 is 15. So they meet the 15 threshold, and I guess we'll place a cube there to represent that they've done that. That allows them to move to this space. And so by building part of the Queen's Palace, they've triggered this as the last round of the game. Since they are the starting player, as denoted by this marker, that means that the green and red player will get to take 1 more turn.
The green player would love to be able to do another build action, but they won't be able to make it there. The farthest they can get to is the moneylender. So unfortunately, they won't be able to contribute to the Queen's Palace in the game, so they won't be able to win. This is a real setback for them, especially after they were trailing for a bit. And we add up their total here, 7, 11, plus 6 is going to be 17. That would actually beat the blue player's 15 contribution. So if they were able to make it, they would have been the winner, but in this case, they were just a little bit short on the rondell, a little less aggressive than they needed to be. So if we were to resolve this, we'd see that they would get 4 coins, but in this case, it doesn't really matter because coins aren't a tiebreaker in this game. Now we come over to the red player, and their last turn is also going to be to build, and if we add up their values, it's 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 5 is 7, 8, then we get to 13, then another 2 is going to take them to 15 as well. So they're going to be able to contribute to the Queen's Palace and get to the end space with the blue player. This concludes all of the turns in the game. Considering the red player matched the blue player, and according to the rules, the tiebreaker is, let's see if we can find it here in the rulebook. If more than one player has managed to contribute to the construction of the Queen's Palace, among these players, the player with the highest sum of performance points for their craftsman is the winner. In the case of a tie for the highest sum, the tied players share the victory. So in this case, we can see that the blue and the red player are tied and share the victory, and the green player comes up just short, but we can see it's a pretty close one. So a few final thoughts on Queen's Architect. Well, as a race game with a rondell, initially I was thinking, this could be a little bit like Navigador, but the rondell aspect doesn't really feel like Navigador all too much, and I think that's just because there isn't as much engine building. While players do move up a track here to get more money every time they take the moneylender action, it doesn't really quite build the same way that game is. Instead, the feeling that I get when I play Queen's Architect is a little bit more similar to something like Istanbul. In that game, it's a race to get the gems. In this game, it's a race to move up the track. I think they each have, a little bit of their own unique flair. I like some of the randomized elements in this game. This track is different every time, and some of the things that we don't use in the game will change it up every time. So we've got a few numbers that weren't in the track this game, an 8, a 7, and a 6. And so each game, the order in which you can hop around and try to make 2 or 3 moves at a go will change. Additionally, we have all these location tiles, the small ones and the medium ones and the large ones. And then those large ones have different bonuses, 3 coins, 3 bonus to your appreciation, recruitment. So the board is a little bit different each game. And then obviously the way that the craftsmen come out will impact the way that you need to play and make different decisions as the way the game goes. But overall, it's kind of its own unique thing. And so if you're a fan of Istanbul or just rondell games in general, this one comes out a little bit lighter than maybe most of those. But I'd say certainly give it a try. And I hope this was a useful video for you. And thanks for watching.